studio for your, college station, but also anything that you might have done just extemporaneously. Like if there is a windstorm in your area, maybe you went out and you shot some stuff and it showed some innovation. That kind of thing is very important. And also what you do digitally, everything you do digitally, your online presence. Be careful of your online presence, because as a manager, we look to see everything. And you can be friendly, but just cool it down a little bit when you're starting to go into the job market, because you're really going to get scrutinized. And for the production aspect, again, reels of things, but also we really like to talk to people you've worked with. What do they think of you? What do they say about, it could be a professor, but it could be somebody you interned with. And those internships are really important. And, it's the big step to getting a job. And so impress those internship supervisors as much as you can. I mean, do anything they would like you to do within reason, and then some if you can. Stretch your mind. Because you're going to learn a lot. It could seem like the dumbest, crappiest job possible, like getting stuff ready for elections. But if you give me Genesee County and Michigan candidates instead of Genesee County and New York State candidates, that has happened to me more than once, that counts. So, but have fun too. Be personable with your internship supervisors if you've done an internship. If you haven't done an internship, highly recommend it. I know it's going to be very, very difficult during this pandemic, but if you have the opportunity to do something, maybe you can do things remotely or offer to do things during the winter break. Newsrooms are really suffering right now. Look at what's going on with Spectrum in our area. 15 people in the Buffalo market, 20 I hear in the Rochester market. They're all losing their jobs. So they could use people to help them.
Awesome. And if either of you want to add on to a question I directed somebody, feel free to just hop in as well. And if any of you have a question, you can raise your hand, or you can message me individually and I can ask it for you, whatever's comfortable. I'd really love to have some audience questions as well. I know that you guys don't want to hear me speak any more than I already am, so please feel free to ask a question. My next question, I'm going to look at you, Mike. So you work, with college students a lot as the sports director. You have sports interns, things like that. We do have a couple of sports focused people here, which is exciting. So what is, maybe a common mistake that you've seen in, that first job application or in an internship application that college students or college graduates are making?
What I would say is, this is maybe in a little broader sense. I've been 30 plus years at my station. I thought I'd be there about 2 when I got there, and I just have never left. The job has changed dramatically. What we look for has changed dramatically. And I'm going to stick up for local stations here a minute, because I think it's changed. When we started, that's all anybody wanted to do. So the reason I bring that up is when I will talk to interns sometimes, or people, I don't think they quite get a lot of times what a local station can do for you. And when I bring somebody in, whether it's an intern or an employee, one of the first things I talk to them about is, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And I tell them, I've been here 30 years. You're not going to be here 30 years. That's not the way it's going to work. You're going to go on to something else, whether it's another local station or whether it's something else. So I always think, come in, if you come in to work for me, or came in as an intern for me or an employee, I would want to know that, because I've just changed the way I felt about that. I'm going to help you work for us. You're going to do what we need or learn as an intern, but I want to help you get to the next step. And so I think understanding all the things you can learn. I will tell you this. I don't think there's a better place to learn the communication business than there is at a local station, especially now. And Nancy mentioned the online presence and everything. I mean, we ask our people to do a lot, all different forms. And so, when you walk in, you're not just sitting there watching somebody as an intern, watching them anchor a report. I mean, you're seeing their social media presence, you're seeing them deal with a multitude of deadlines, all those things. So I think it's a big, wide open thing to learn from. So come in with an open mind. No one is expecting you to walk in, no matter what they tell you, and think you're going to work at WHM in Rochester for your whole career. That was for us. I don't think it's happening. So that's what I look for. I look for people with an open mind, and I'll be totally honest with them and understand that you want to go somewhere bigger or different. That's fine. But just realize what you can learn at a local station.
Well, I'd like to add that this is definitely for people who like people. If you like to talk to people, and I'm not saying just sending them emails, pick up the phone and talk to them. And that is very important. Don't be afraid to do that. And that's really prized in this business, because I think, make stronger relationships when you really make that connection. And as a young person starting out, you have to start making your contact list. And sometimes it's great to go back and say, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while, just thought I would check in. These things are networking things. Learn how to do this and learn how to do it effectively. I mean, this is definitely a people business, and people will remember you if you come back to them.
I see Noah has a question. Noah, feel free, unmute, go ahead.
Thank you. Point on the networking thing. How do you network without seeming like you're super self-interested?
It's okay to be self-interested at your age and from where you're coming from. I think we expect that. You're the people that we remember. If you're going to be that shy, shrinking violet, you're not going to make it in this business. It's tough enough. So I think self-interest is okay. I mean, yeah, maybe it can get a little annoying when, the world is falling around apart around us, and, you're interested in your schedule for next week or something like that. But, it's really important to put yourself first. And I think that the managers will realize where you're coming from. I really do.
Yeah, and I would just add, as long as you understand, there's going to be a time when you might get totally blown off because of timing, and deadlines have changed for everybody in the newsroom. It used to be a much more structured thing. We're always under some sort of deadline, but I will tell you this: if you're not advocating for yourself and you're not self-interested, then nobody's going to be interested in you. You just will sort of get a feel of what's the line between being annoying and just being persistent. If you're not persistent, you're not going to excel, I don't think, in the business anyhow. So people they should respect that, and you'll just feel it out. But you got to be, don't hesitate from being, as you said, self-interested, because I think you're going to need that.
Thank you.
I
Go
think
ahead.
also have to figure out, what does the station need at this time? Like, okay, there's a big blizzard or something. Maybe, you can help in some way. Maybe you can volunteer. Lots of stations have unions, and, there are problems doing that. But, where is the need and how can you fill it? It's not all about you. It's like, what is the need of that station? And if you can guess it or try to figure out where you can help, that's really important.
And I wanted to just ask, kind of, Noah and I had the same thought at the same time. So I'm glad that you asked that question, Noah, about networking. How often, we talked about persistence, a little bit of a vague topic, how often should we be reaching out to a hiring manager or a news director or whomever that person is? And how do you approach them, whether it's like a cold email or maybe somebody that you met in person 6 months ago at a conference?
Well, I would do it. First of all, news directors are really, really busy. So they may get annoyed with frequent phone calls. But, send an email every once in a while, maybe call, once a month or something like that. I don't think that's too much. But, try different outreaches, maybe send them a sample of your reel. Hey, when you get a chance, could you look at this? I would go for the secondary person. the assistant news director, or, an executive producer, make them your buddy. And yeah, fine if you can get the news director, but I think they are more than likely to get annoyed than that second person. And the second person may have just as much or more influence on who is hired than the top person. Because I will tell you, and many times I was the assistant news director or the operations manager, and I was the one who was going through the resumes, and I was the one who was saying, hey, check this out or do that, not necessarily the news director. Then the news director looked at it.
Yeah, and I would also agree that you do need to make sure that you are on their mind. So you've got to get there, but there is a balance between, calling every day. It is different now. There are news directors now, especially where honestly, we go back to the time when you sent a tape and then you made sure the tape arrived and you could always make that phone call and say, did you get my tape and all that. But there are news directors that go home, with their iPhone and watch resume tapes on their phone. So if you can get to somebody at the right time at an appropriate time, it can't be daily. Don't be that person, but you do need an advocate. And if you know somebody in the newsroom, a reporter, a producer, that's not going to hurt either, because they can walk in the office and say, hey, Nancy, do you know this guy? He's a young guy, he's a good kid or a good woman, and she sent her tape. That doesn't hurt either. So having an advocate that can get to that news director or decision maker is important.
Mm-hmm. I want to say something else. I had some interns who were so exuberant, it floored me, but this I thought was a great thing. I had one student from Fredonia who came in to do an internship. He wanted to come in, drive in from Fredonia and be there overnight with the overnight producers. Now, we had never had an intern overnight. And I will tell you, it was very helpful because the overnight producers were doing 4.5 hours of news, didn't have time to call the cops about all these different things that would come up. And it was very, very helpful for that person to do that. So when you're a young person starting out, chances are your first job is not going to be working Monday through Friday. It's going to be working overnight, weekends, all the holidays, all of those things. So as a young person going into this, if you volunteer to do that, that is really wonderful, because the last thing you want to hear is when you hire somebody and they say, oh, I can't possibly work overnight. My health won't allow it, or something like this. And I've had that happen to me several times. So, that's really important, filling those slots and being, healthy enough and excited enough about the business that you're willing to do those off-hour shifts.
So I want to kind of talk about something that we touched on at the beginning. We briefly talked about, resume and reel. I know we have a lot of broadcast focused people here, some audio focused people, so it kind of runs the same line. Nancy, I'll ask you the news side. Mike, I'll ask you the sports side. What should a resume tape look like? That's very broad. You can take that where you wish, but how do we do it?
Well, for me, I always like people to give me a variety of different things, have, some your best, stand up and breaking news kind of things. And there is no definite style. I mean, I've had people who put together a bunch of stand-ups one after another and then did stories. You get to see their style that way. Or some usually put their best story first, and then there maybe some features or some unusual things. There really is no formula for it. I think if you do something unusual, creative, that really catches someone's eye. Something innovative, or something on the internet these days, where before that wasn't that important. But I know that I know WIVB, which was the last station I worked at, hired 6 internet-only reporters in the past year or so. 6. These people do not appear on the air, but if an opening comes up, they would be the first people probably to be considered for those for those openings. They appear only on the internet. So things you do on the internet are really important. Now, the reasoning behind this, because Nexstar, which was the parent company, very, very into web posting and the internet, and they see where this is going. People are watching stuff on their phones, and maybe the broadcast hour is less important than it used to be. I think that's the case.
Mike, I'll change the question just a
Yeah.
bit for you. I know that a lot of people on this call have had various experiences in sports at Ithaca College, whether that's
Right.
play-by-play color commentary, sideline reporting, in the field reporting, like packages, anchoring, analyst even. What's important to include on that sports tape when, play-by-play, we might not see your face?
Yeah. Okay. So you got to know what job you're going for. If you're sending me a resume at Channel 13, I don't really want your play-by-play. You got be aware of that. I'm trying not to sound superficial, but I will tell you where you look the best and sound the best, put it up front in your tape. Because if I'm hiring somebody, it's got to go through my news director. Through the years that I've been there, it's changed. When I was first there, my news director would present people and say, this is who we're going to hire. And it's turned, since I've been there long enough, it's where I will then present to them. Like, I'll go through the tapes. And I know there's a certain thing. Now, you're not looking for, Mr. or Mrs. America here, but you have to have a look and a sound to be on the air. And that can be a bunch of different things, but make sure you present that first. And then I want to see your stories. And if you're a sports reporter, say you want to anchor, please do me a favor. I want to see your best stuff. Maybe if you have a montage, that's fine. But I also want to see you do a sportscast. It doesn't have to be 4.5 minutes, but give me a transition from story to story. I want to get a feel of who you are. I'll see some tapes where, they think it's their best read on this story and their best read on that story, and they're in 4 different outfits, and it's the whole thing. I'm going to put you on the newscast. I want to see what you can do. And, then someone said to me, don't hide your best thing 6 minutes into your tape, because the news director's not getting to the 6th minute if he or she doesn't like what they see. So the superficial part, I'm just going to be blunt and say, where you look and sound the best, make sure you have that up front so that they continue to look at your tape. I know some people don't want to hear that, but that is the truth. It's going to be the truth. So you got to do that first, and always make sure you present well. But take some, I don't mean chances to be like something way out of bounds, but if you do something really interesting or funny, give me something because I know I'm going to my news director with it, and they'll see a woman do this great stand up and put something in there, and they'll love it. And they'll love to be able to go to the corporate guy and say, look at what she can do. And that helps you. So I would say that's a plus. You need to get the attention of the people. Once you have our attention, I may ask you for something else. Give me 2 stories you've done. Give me something else. But you got to get me there first.
And Mike, I just want to ask a follow-up to you. You've worked with the Buffalo Bills television network in the past, which is separate in a way. So what is that kind of team experience like? What do teams look for when we're seeing more and more, media teams on a, NFL team?
It's funny because it used to be there was very little media on a team, very little individual media people that just worked for the team. And like the Bills, for example, some of their people do just outstanding work. It's different. It's less editorial. It's more somewhat promotional. I mean, it is. The Bills are doing well now, so it's a lot easier to be positive. But if people are asked to walk a different line there. But if you're a production person, I mean, they just do phenomenal work. They have a little more time. They have access that we don't get, and they do great work. I've been in both of those worlds, sometimes literally changing my shirt and tie because I'm not going to wear a Bills shirt on the newscast, but I'd wear it when I'm doing the broadcast, even though it's on our channel. It is a little different mentality, and you do have to sort of cross that line a little bit. But no one with the Bills ever asked me to not say anything. But I think when you're working for a team, it's different. But they're looking for people that are very good communicators, that work well with other people, that have versatility. They're looking for a lot of the same thing we are. It's just the way it presents on the air is a little bit different.
I totally agree with you, Mike. And I will say that the Pagulas have, their whole team have won several Emmys. They've done exemplary work.
Yeah.
I mean, and they don't stint. I mean, they really put in the production values. We've had people who worked for the sports department at WIVB, and they went over to the Pagulas because they thought that they had more opportunity to do creative things there. And they enjoy it. They love it.
For non-Bills fans, the Pagulas are the owners of the Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Sabres hockey team, and they have their own entertainment organization called Pagula Sports and Entertainment, and they do all of the Bills and Sabres team production. For anybody who's not a Bills fan like me and who almost cried yesterday when they lost. Anyways, we'll move on to our next question. Nancy, you, as I mentioned, you work with the Buffalo Broadcasters Association student mentorship program. So, what advice do you give to your mentees who are, looking to get into this business?
I just tell them to reach out every opportunity. Unfortunately, there aren't the job fairs this year, but I met a lot of people that we considered for positions at WIVB through the job fairs that the Buffalo Broadcasters do. And if you don't have an organization like the Buffalo Broadcasters, sometimes there's networking events. I know there's the Association of Black Journalists. Okay, they have many networking events. There are a couple of other organizations like that. I think I would look for those kinds of things. There were mixers, fun things in the summer, runs. There were different things like that. Of course, with COVID, a lot of this has stopped, but there are some virtual events that these people are having. So, those things are really important. The people at organizations like this can really help you get a job. And in a way, if you're friendly with people in organizations like that, they have a lot to say with their friends that are still in the business. And a recommendation from somebody in this business is so important instead of going in cold. And especially somebody, and if somebody who's been a broadcaster for a long time says, this person really has it, I think it really carries a lot of weight. So look for those opportunities. And there are different groups in every city. So I don't know the ones that are necessarily in your community, but if you're watching your Facebook feed, these things will pop up, and it's a good thing to be part of them if you can.
Yeah, and I could add to that too. There's a bit of a community of all the sports directors and people, and I cannot tell you how many times I've either reached out to one of them or they've reached out to me, say, hey, we're going to be looking for, that's where you need to be. You need to know when we are going to be looking, because somebody came to me, they're leaving in 6 weeks. I know I'm going to have an opening, and I start looking, but I might call up 3 or 4 people I know in Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, and say, hey, we're looking for a part-time person. We're looking for our third anchor. We're looking for whatever. And I've had people, one of my guys who works in Cleveland now came to me because Channel 9 in Syracuse said, this guy was awesome. We were hoping to get him in here. We didn't have an opening. He came to us. We hired him. He worked with us, and now he's anchoring in Cleveland. He's done a great job. So that can also help too. You'd be surprised at how many of those phone calls go on, not just between sports people. It goes on between, news directors in different cities and all too, where they're like, you got anybody? I'm looking for someone. And that's important to get your name in that circulation.
Awesome. I have just 2 more quick questions left. So I'm going to then hand the microphone over to the rest of our participants. So please, again, raise your hand, raise your virtual hand, physical hand, message me, whatever, smoke signal, all of those work just fine. So, kind of just to wrap up my questions for you, it is internship application season. It's job application season for some of our graduating seniors. So, what are your tips to success? And, how to go to our title of the event, how do we stand out from the crowd? It's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, I would honestly, look, Ithaca has a great reputation. It really does. In the building, in our building, it does. And you want to get started. I mean, it certainly helps. But you walk in. I remember this, my first day, well, it'll be 33 years ago in a few weeks. And I walk in the newsroom and I hear "Go Bombers." And it was Don Alhart, our anchor, who is still our anchor. He's been anchoring 55 years at the station. He's an Ithaca College guy. And I remember thinking, who knows I went to Ithaca? And the Ithaca group was waiting for me there. You'll have a little bit of that, which is great. Take advantage of that, I would say. Depending on the job, I think it helps. I know, and a lot of people in the newsroom know, you are, I don't say better, you have more opportunity than a lot of other schools. And so we give all the Syracuse guys plenty of hard time. But we know you're hands-on a lot. And I think that helps. And there's a certain point, they're looking at your resume, they know what it is. You're coming right out of school. Like the news director or the sports director, we know, but we're looking for somebody. And if we're looking at you, we understand what your level of experience is. And I would say it's great to have that Ithaca College on your resume. You can highlight that.
I don't know how much you know who the alumni are in the various markets. For instance, there's Aaron Mason, who's the assistant news director at WKBW TV, very pro Ithaca. He's a good person to get to know, and he's an excellent person as a contact because he's not the news director, he's the assistant news director. But from what I understand, he may be the news director very soon at WKBW, okay? That's one person. Rich Newberg, I don't know if you've ever heard of Rich Newberg. He was one of the reporters at Channel 4 for years and years, has won many, many Emmy Awards. He's on the Emmy committees and really many, many awards. He's a good person to reach out to too. And a recommendation would mean a lot from Rich Newberg. Even if you want him to look at your reel, he's very friendly and he'd be happy to do it, I think. I don't know some of the other people. I know that but definitely Aaron Mason and Rich Newberg are two people in the Buffalo market, at least, who would be good friends to students graduating.
Awesome. I think Alyssa has a question for all of you. So I'm going to put the spotlight on her and encourage anybody else has a question, just let me know. Alyssa?
So this kind of goes off of Tara's question, but like you guys mentioned before, it's a weird time with all this being remote and some internships just not being there anymore due to furloughing and just people having to kind of tighten up. So for those, maybe juniors or seniors that don't have that opportunity maybe to get an internship, or for the freshmen and sophomores that it's just not time for them to get an internship, what do you recommend for those people to keep them engaged in the industry so that when that time comes to jump to that internship, they're ready?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's going to be tough. That part, I just got another notice today, no visitors in the building, nobody extra in the building. And let's be honest, it's tough to be an intern remotely. I mean, it's just, there are probably things you can do, and you may be able to, like we do have people in the newsroom, so you may be able to make it work, but I do think it's going to be difficult. I think it's a time, I do think it's a time to still make contact with people and, and to keep your name in there. But I think it's also maybe making that recommendation to a newsroom at some point as an intern. Go in fully understanding and say, look, I know this is what it is. I'd be willing to work around whatever provisions you have. I can do things from home. I can contribute. I want, and learn that way. And honestly, sometimes you become the solution to the problem, and they may very well go along with it. And at least it gives you that connection, which I think is going to be very important.
I don't know that this would work necessarily for every newsroom, but okay, at this time of year, newsrooms are doing things like food drives, cook drives, different things like that. They may need volunteers to help with things like that. And it's a good way to get to know the people. I even say radio stations, even if even if your heart is in television news, getting to know the people in radio, not a bad idea. They're great. They always talk to the people in television, or you may want to be in radio. They all have these different drives and different things going on, and you can volunteer for those maybe sooner than you can going into a station. It's another good networking idea, even if you can't really physically go into a station.
Awesome. Great question, Alyssa. Right now, I'll turn it over to Tyler, and then John will have you be on deck.
Yeah, so I'm one of the few aforementioned seniors. So as far as the search goes for me going forward, I'm wondering with how stations have been, and even you've mentioned, Mike, you've mentioned that you haven't been had to allow new people into the building. I know I spoke with people that are at the Binghamton station, WBNG.
Yeah.
It's the same thing over there. So I'm just wondering, like, what are the chances you think, like, it may be the opportunity comes that you have to maybe just become an intern at first, even after I'm graduated, and then possibly down the road, it turns into something that's paid because of how tight things really are. Like, I'm just wondering how, out there I need to like put myself, or how willing I should be, obviously more than normally, but.
That's a really good question. And I would say you're going down the right path if you're thinking that way. Nobody wants to work for free. If you can do that and be in the building, especially in a small market. And look, we're a medium-sized market. Most of the people, I worked in Binghamton, most of the people in our market worked in Binghamton. They worked in Elmira. They worked in Watertown, wherever it happens to be. But when they're filling those jobs, like that first job, if if you're in the building and you're helping, and a lot of times, let's say in sports, if you were working in sports in Binghamton, they're shorthanded to begin with. Mm-hmm. You may find yourself doing things on the air as an intern, and this happens. And then the next thing you know, you're in there, and that's tough to do. It used to be like my college roommate. We were talking about who works for different companies. He works for the Evil Empire, also known as the New England Patriots. And he worked for Channel 4 and Channel 5 in Boston. And then they came to him. The Patriots hired him away from the station. And it was a huge thing to go over to working for the team. But the reason I bring him up, when he got out of school, he basically interned for a place and then just hung out at Channel 4 until they eventually hired him. You can't really do that now. I mean, you can't. I mean, the laws are different. The work laws are different. You can't just be there for free. Yeah. But if you can get in to some form of an internship under credit and be there, even if it's a small amount, and you're in the building, I think it's a phenomenal idea, because, you'll know pretty quickly, because the woman or the guy you're working for there, they've got 3 resumes out already. They're looking to move on. That's when it happens. And then you're there, and it gives you a big leg up on other people.
I just want to say that it's very, very difficult to have someone volunteer, because New York State labor laws do not allow stations to have people. It's not only New York State labor laws, but it's liability. If you fall and break your neck at the station, they don't want that. So even if you're taking 1 credit, you can do it. And I've had people who've graduated who've taken 1 credit hour or got special permission. But that's very important, because it's very tragic when someone comes to you and they say, "Oh, I'll volunteer. You don't have to pay me."
Yeah.
You can't do it. You can't do it. It's just one of those things. That train has left the station unless you are taking at least 1 credit hour.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tyler. We'll head to Queens, New York, to John Vicari.
Thanks, Tara. First, Mike and Nancy, thanks for hopping on the Zoom. Much appreciated from everybody. My
Sure.
question, because I know there's, everyone from freshmen to seniors in this Zoom, is there something that both of you didn't do in college or wish you'd done differently looking back, in which it could have made you better for your career or even, personal life in that realm?
I'm trying to think, it was, I think honestly, I think it was such a different world for us coming out of school. I used to say to everybody, the way I would describe it was, the pyramid, it wasn't, it was sort of the way to move up was like this, and it just went straight up, right? And our focus, if anything, I might have relaxed my focus a little bit. I was sort of very narrow. I mean, we would study like market size, and if I get into Binghamton, I can go here and do that. And we didn't look outside of our own little world a little bit. And I think it's because that's the nature of what the business was. I think there's a lot more opportunities for people now to show their creative side, to put things together that will advance your career. So I think if there's anything, I just was so focused on it when I was getting out of school. I wish I would have opened my eyes up to some different things. Maybe they weren't even that available to me at the time, but you guys do have, it might seem to be a lot, but you have a lot more opportunities to show that side of you. It didn't exist really for us. So we were I think I was a little too narrow in my focus to what else might have been out there, but it's what I wanted to do. So I was pretty dialed in. But when I look back, I think, well, there was a whole nother world out there. But I'm still doing it. So it didn't work out too badly in that way.
Well, I think it's important to show some interest in something else. Like if you're interested in the environment, if you're interested in politics. I mean, I did internship in City Hall when I was a college student way back in the Stone Age, but it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot. And so if you have another interest, I don't care if it's preserving houses and doing windows or something, anything that is really interesting in the community, that is another little thing that rounds out your value to a station. Anything like that, show that you're interested in the world around you, not just going out with your friends. And I understand that's important when you're a young person, but if you can show that you're interested in something, the environment, animals, animal rescue, as something that's, that develops you as a whole person, I think that that's really important.
Great. This has been an awesome conversation thus far. So I echo John in thanking you for your time tonight. Before we wrap up, are there any other questions for Nancy and or Mike? Anything at all? Yes, Noah, and then we'll go to Cameron.
What do you guys think about humor in applications? Like, I know of two people who put in their skills parallel parking and ukulele.
Fine line, I think. I don't know.
I think it depends on how you present that. If you put down 4 skills and those were 2 of them, I don't know if that would work. I think a certain sense of humor is appreciated. But yeah, it's right. You gotta sort of read the room a little bit. You're trying to get some attention and you want them to look at you. But yeah, it's a little bit of that. But look, your personality, again, it's a little different in sports. You can show a personality much more than you're permitted to in news. We give our opinions more. That's more the case. So to the point Nancy just made about being a well-rounded person can come out, your humor can come out, all those things can come out. So I think you do have to watch on how you present it, but I would hope that a proper amount or just something to grab somebody's attention is appreciated more than looked at. Like I would hope, people don't take themselves too seriously.
Alrighty, we'll hop over to Cameron.
Thank you.
so this might be a little bit out of reach, but being in the industry for many years and at the local level and I guess and national too, what new technologies like do you see being the new way in which people view television and which producers produce television?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I've mentioned this to Tara when we spoke before. I 30 plus years of doing this, and I break every part of my career down. I just break it down in decades. My first 10 years, it was all television. Cable wasn't even a huge part of it. And then the second 10, cable came in and changed everything. And then with the advent of really a huge digital presence, starting with internet presence, it changed again. And now the portability of content and the way that people, I used to think to myself, like, why the way we do it isn't working as much. And then I think, well, I look at the way I consume media now, let alone somebody who's 10, 20, 30 years younger than me. So I think it's the same thing I look for when I'm hiring people. I've had to adapt, and I've adapted. I mean, today I'm doing, we're on multiple platforms putting our product out there. So it's ever changing. We transitioned to a YouTube channel that has really done well. And the algorithms on YouTube have worked out well for us. So, people are finding us there. But realizing that there is many, many more things, and it changes so rapidly. I think being able to adapt and adjust is crucial. And what used to take 5 years to change takes 5 months to change. So the key thing is to be able to, I tell our people, you are content producers. We'll find the platform. We keep moving platform, constantly putting out product. That's going to keep changing. Some of these things are going to change 3 times before you get out of school. I mean, this is just the way it's going. But the idea of producing content and trying to tailor it to that platform is the key. And look, somebody my age has, and I've really adapted. And I've got 2 people in their 20s. Well, one, she's going to hit 30, but don't tell her if you ever see Jenna that I said she was going to hit 30 this year. But they've helped me adapt. And we have like 2 separate audiences. Totally. We have a digital audience and we have a TV audience. I shouldn't say totally, that's not fair. But what I'm getting at is, I don't know, but what I do know is good content adapted to that platform is going to work. It's just a matter of constantly being able to produce that is something that's interesting to people and that fits that platform. And like I said, it's YouTube, it's Instagram, it's even our Facebook, which has gotten a little dicey sometimes. And then it's almost a different product that we put on the newscast, or it's at least presented in a different way. So knowing your audience, knowing the platform is important. You guys have a big advantage coming out. You can be teaching the people you're going to be working for somewhat, but it's producing that content that is the key, and just adapting it to the platform.
I would just add to that. I think that's very, very important. I would just add to that. Don't forget about storytelling. You are storytellers, and being a journalist, especially in the times that we live in right now, so important. So being able to tell your stories on all those different platforms and learning all the new ones that come along, very, very important. Don't get stuck in the mud. I mean, I think we're still very old fashioned with putting a news on at 6 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 boys that they're older than you guys, but they don't watch the news at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock or whatever's on, the computer or their phone. And that's where we're going. So, being a good storyteller, truthful, what is the essence of the story, and in getting the contact so that you can get tips about stories or, interesting things that will be of interest to the whole community. Really, really important.
Yeah. And Cameron, if I can add something, it's like when I'm talking to, again, they've helped me with some of the way to present it and what we're doing. But what I try to explain to them is, I present something on a newscast. It's a 5 o'clock newscast that runs from 5 to 6. I say to them, you have to know your audience, because you're sitting as a passive viewer watching a product, and then all of a sudden here Mike's on talking about the Bills. So you have to know who you're talking to, and you've sort of chosen, the station has, to present this to people. Well, you know what it's like with digital platforms. You choose what you watch, when you watch. So yes, you need to present that as a storyteller, but you also know, you need to know how to grab that attention in certain ways. You know what works, what makes you click. And I'm not telling you to go for clickbait, but I'm telling you to understand how to present that story, whether it's graphically, titles, whatever it is, in order to draw somebody in, because you don't have a stagnant audience sitting there watching a newscast. We have that, but we also, we always joke. People come to us, but in so much else of what we do, we'll go find you. We're finding you. We're going to come out and find you wherever you have your phone, wherever you are. We're going to come try to find you, and that's the part. I think it's to Nancy's point. The content's got to be good. If the content's not good, you might get some clicks on something, but people aren't coming back to you. So being adaptable is a huge part of it.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Cameron, for that question. And as we wrap up here, just a few minutes left. If anybody has a question, let me know. We're going to hop over to the West Coast now, and we're going to go to Emily.
Yeah, so I had a question about like cover letters. So I know that a lot of jobs and internships require a cover letter. So do you have any tips on how to write one that kind of stands out from the pile that recruiters get, like stuff you should do and stuff you definitely should not do in a cover letter?
I really don't know what to say about that. I mean, I think I would like to see things that are friendly and unique instead of the typical blah, blah, blah. But I can't give you really any tips on how to do that. I think you have to know who you're writing to, and also realize that if you can somehow mention how you can help that station by being a part of it.
Yeah.
What are you bringing to that station? What attributes, or what community things have you done, or what things can you really help round out their knowledge? And do you understand the history of that station? Like maybe that station has been #1 in the market forever and ever. If you can mention that, I would be honored to be, I don't know, not say quite like that, but, have a sense. If you can relay that you have a sense of, who you're talking to, I think that's really important.
Yeah, Emily, yeah, just, I've gotten cover letters on resumes that it's blatantly obvious it's the same cover letter with a different name. I've even gotten them with the wrong name, because they've sent out 100 of them and done that way. Personalizing it to that extent, I think is important. Again, I think Nancy makes a great point. If they're looking for something, give them the idea that you're the person to fill that. So if it's an internship, this is what I want to do. I want to learn about the business. I want to help your station, whatever it is, in the right way, presented professionally, and, when they look at it, they're thinking, they put you in the right pile, honestly, when it comes in.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for your time this evening. I think we had an amazing conversation. Lots of good questions from the audience as well. So thank you guys for participating. We'll give a little virtual round of applause for our panel. Thank you so much. Is there, if you guys want to throw in the chat how we can connect with you? I know, Mike, you're on Twitter, LinkedIn, anywhere that we can connect. That'd be great if you want to throw that in the chat or say it aloud, and I can type it as well, whatever works best.
Yeah, I'll throw it in the chat. I'll put my information in there, and reach out at any time. And if I can help you, I mean, not everybody, obviously sports is what I do, but I've been there a long time, and that's sort of the way our station has been. So we got some bombers. Seth Palmer is a relatively recent Ithaca grad, and he runs basically our whole web department. So he's a good person to know too. So yeah, I'll put that information in there. Reach out at any point if I can help you. Just let me know. It's a great day to be a bomber, right? Isn't that what they say?
Always a great day to be a bomber. Yes, for
Great.
sure.
Okay,
And thank you, Nancy, as well for coming.
thank you. And I'll throw my information in the chat too, so no problem. Okay.
Awesome. I'm just going to run through some quick announcements. So for, it is November. We elect with the calendar year our e-board. If you'd like to run for an e-board position, you need to be a national member to do so. So again, my pitch, strongly encourage all of you to become national members of SPJ. That's how you get to go to conferences as well. You have to be a national member to attend those. And we'd like to hopefully open up those conferences if and when they are in person again, or if they're virtual. And as I promised, we are announcing our next event, which will be not next Monday, but the Monday after Thanksgiving, November 30th. So right before finals, we will be having ESPN's Kevin Nagandi join us, SportsCenter anchor and college football anchor. So if you are interested, please come. We'll be sending you guys the first to know. You get an exclusive take here. So we will have him on. He's been at ESPN for many, many years, and he's awesome. So I'm really excited to kind of have that conversation. I think it's going to be so fun. If you have any friends that you want to mention that to, please feel free. We'll be sending out an email hopefully later this week with all of our information. That's all I really have in terms of announcements. Thank you again to our panel. Copy down that information in the chat. And if anybody has a question, I'll stick around. If not, I'll see some of you at the radio meeting in 3 minutes. If not, I'll see some of you on the 30th. And e-board, if you guys could just stay behind for like 2 minutes, that'd be awesome.
Okay. Goodbye.
Thank you
all.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you guys.
you.
Awesome. Cool. We'll stop recording. Emily, do you want to do that?
Yeah. Let
All right.
me, there we go.